All right. You're able to hear me, all of you, right? Are you all able to hear me? You can't hear me? Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Good. Okay. Super. So I said last class we just covered about 3 mantras of Mundaka Upanishad. I will try to cover at least one or two today. And I would like to put a base on another topic which is of importance, which will be very relevant in our next mantra. So that way you will have the base of what you need to know, right? So we start with Pranavodhanu, right? That is where we stopped. Correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next one is you have the script with you, right? So Yasmin Dyauhu. You know,
We don't have the script.
oh, okay. Give me 1 second. I'll,
Not to follow, we have.
okay, I will give you right away. My script writing team is working on a project and they just asked for some more time. Hopefully by next week class we should have a full script of what we are learning. Yeah, I've shared it in the group. Let me know when you have it. Good. Usha, you have it? Padmaja? Great. So, Yasmin Dyauhu Prithvi Chantarikshamotam Manaha Saha Pranaishcha Sarvaihi. Yasmin Dyauh Prithvi Chantarikshamotam Manassaha Pranaishcha Sarvaihi. Tamevaikam Jaratha Atmanamanya Vacho Vimunchatha Mritasyaish Setuhu. Tamevaikam Jaratha Atmanamanya Vacho Vimunchatha Mritasyaish Setuhu. This is mantra number 4. So let us understand the individual meaning of the words here. Yasmin means in whom. Dyauhu is referencing the heaven. Prithvi is, we all know, the earth. Antariksham we know. It becomes Chantariksham because it is Prithvi cha Antariksha. Cha is for and. So Prithvi cha Antariksha, which means earth and the sky. Sarvaihi means all. Pranaihi is the pranas. We already know a lot about it. Saha means with. Manaha, we know, is the mind. Otam means soon, means you sew the cloth, right? You sew with a stitch, sewn or fixed. Tam means that. Ekam means one. Atmanam means Atman. Eva is only. So tam eva ekam becomes tamevaikam. Janatha is known. Known means knowledge. Known, known. Anyaha, all other. So Atmanam is Atman, Anyaha is all other. So together it becomes Atmanamanya. Vachaha means talks. Vimunchatha means give up. Eshaha, this. Amrutasya is reference against to, we have discussed this last class. Any one of you remember? What is Amrutasya referring to?
Immortal nectar.
Correct, absolutely. So, of immortality, Setuhu is the bridge. So, that is the individual meaning of each of the words. In summary, what this mantra says is know that one Atman only, means there are no multiple Atman, there's only one Atman, by whom the heaven, the earth, the sky, the mind, with all the pranas, are all sewn or interwoven or interloomed. They're all stitched together. So they're not like individual separate pieces hanging out there. They're all part of the system. So give up all other vain talks, VAIN. Give up all other vain talks. This is the bridge to the attaining of immortality. Say to who is the bridge? This is the bridge to attaining immortality. Now, this last two sentences, who is talking to who?
Sage Anki was just short.
Correct. So, is clearly advising the Sishya, saying that give up all the vain talks. Idhar udhar ki baat mat karo, sab chodo. Focus on that Atman, because with that Atman is everything else connected. So once you realize that Atman, you will realize everything else. And the key word here is realization, not knowledge or experience. And you'll have to come out of the bounds of the Panchabhutas and the gross body level to get into the other side of the story. Does anybody remember what we discussed last week in terms of the bow and the arrow? What is the bow?
The Okara.
Correct. Super. See, it's very simple. You just have to revise the previous class, watch the YouTube, take some notes, and revise whatever you have learned from day one. It becomes very easy. So here, if you notice that the idea of turning away the mind from the external objects of the senses. In other words, giving up the enjoyment of the world and its objects and fixing on the goal, which is Brahman, is again and again strongly advocated by the Shruti in all of these mantras. In almost every mantra or every alternate mantra, that message is being reiterated, that you need to get out of all this worldly objects that you're experiencing through the five senses. Get beyond this, and only then you will be able to realize Atman. So, what is this Atman? So, the Atman is again not another object of knowledge. Oh, I know about it. It's not an object of knowledge. It's not something that you can say, show me, let me feel, let me touch, let me sense or smell. But Atman is the substance of one's own self, as well as the self of everybody else. Key word is self of everybody else. So there we get reminded that the Atman in my body and the Atman in your body is no different. They are all part of the one Paramatma. So, as a subject can never become an object at any time, The self cannot be known through any means related to objective knowledge. So, any mechanism that you use to say, I know about this, I know about this, I know this, I know that, cannot be used to realize Atman. It can only be realized in the form of self awareness, freed from the objective faculties pertaining to the five material sheets. Sheets is, you remember, Annamaya, Koshamaya, all of those layers that we discussed. So, in order to achieve this, you have to achieve a total abstraction of oneself and refuse to abide by the laws of relative thinking and understanding. Can anybody translate this in Hindi in one word or one sentence? It translates to dimag ladana band karo. That is what it means. Stop applying your logic. तो आत्मन बड़ा है, छोटा है, राउंड है, स्क्वायर है, ऊपर है, नीचे है. Stop getting into that attribute business. The moment you start attributing, you get into the physical senses to be able to appreciate it. So दिमाग लड़ाना बंद करो, logic करना बंद करो. So when you start getting into logic, you're stuck into that infinite loop. How can my Atman in my body and your body can be the same? How did that Atman, Jivatman become a part of Paramatman? Don't apply all those logic, because certain things you can only achieve through realization. And for realization, you need to slowly start abstracting yourself from the senses, the tendency to do everything analytically or logically interpreted. Right? So their place always we say, even in Sri Vidya Upasana, we say you have God, Guru, and the Sishya. That's a trikutam that you always talk about. So you cannot attain God or understand God or appreciate God, realize God without the help of a Guru. So Guru plays a very important role. So what is this sense of self-abstraction that we're talking about? It is signified by discipline and control of speech. Because speech is one means to relating oneself with external objects, where you spend energy. Every thought that we have sends out energy to the object that is thought. So you try to visualize, you try to understand, you try to know, and then you use speech to describe it and relate to it. Now, when you talk of transformation of the mind, in trying to engage into all of these physical objects that you see around you, what you observe is absence of an equilibrium of the mind. If you can give me one example relating to your practical day-to-day life, if each one of you, let us see if all of you talk about a same example or different types of example. When I'm making the statement that you definitely don't have an equilibrium of the mind when you're trying to relate to the external objects in the world in which you live in.
Sometimes my thoughts, words, and deeds are not congruent. I'll be thinking something, but I'll speak something.
Okay, that is one good example. What else?
We are distracted towards the earlier work what you have done when you are doing the next work, and also thinking simultaneously the next work what we are doing. So it is all trying to interlink unnecessarily.
Correct. You build a cobweb of everything.
It's a very common thing. So where you lack the focus.
Yes. Okay. So all the examples are around focus and attention. Can I get some different example where you're talking of that the equilibrium of the mind is not there?
Okay. Sometimes when we are saying the prayers, okay, your mind is not in that. Somehow even it is disturbed. Your mind is okay. I am supposed to have a call at 10 o'clock. I need to finish this quickly, wrap it up, and get out. Okay. That steals your attention. So you are not able to give your 100% truth.
It's still
Happens many times.
it still is focused around focus and concentration or attention. Can I get some different example?
And equilibrium towards situations, happy and sorrow,
Perfect.
and peace.
Good. So give me a real life example.
When we get a good news, we are happy. When we get something, we are happy.
Okay, that is still you're talking about different aspects of your response,
Real life example.
right? So I'll give you one example, which will be a very eye opener for you, because this word equilibrium you probably are able to understand in a literal sense. Equilibrium matlab balance hai, sorrow and happiness. You're just visualizing whatever I'm saying in terms of words. So, uh, in order to relate to that in your practical day to day life, this example will help you. Let's say you've been through hardships in your life and you have aspirations to get certain things. The aspiration could be of a diamond necklace or a big mansion or a foreign trip or whatever. Each one will have their own. When you first get it, you're super excited. So your response is one of joy and happiness, right? Your response is one of happiness and joy because you got what you didn't have, and you thought that once you get it, you will be happy for the rest of your life. Another example could be that you hit a jackpot. I just wish I had a couple of $1 million and I can retire. I don't want to work. So you receive that news with excess amount of joy and happiness. Do you think it stops there?
No.
Pretty soon,
What hearing and reading and other things.
pretty soon you realize that that itself becomes the source for your sorrow and concern and anxiety. You hit a jackpot, then your next concern is how do I save on tax? Where do I invest? Where do I keep it in a safe vault so that it doesn't get stolen? Should I tell people or not? Otherwise, they'll come and cheat me or loot me. So, achieving something that you always look for does not necessarily guarantee you that you're happy. In short, this one example should open up your eyes at this age in saying, am I really going to lose something when I start saying, give up something, give up something? Because the key question in both the batches that I see is, how do we start giving up something? I'm just 35, 40, 50. I have a long way to go. So, how do you keep advising me that you give up something? And remember, I said, you use this time to learn. It takes years and years to learn a few things. And before you're ready to make the call, simultaneously, habits die hard. So, if you say, from tomorrow, I'm going to be in pursuit of moksha, you cannot just say, I will drop everything and go. You will have to unwind slowly. It takes time. But how will you start unwinding if you don't even know what to do to unwind? For that, the first step in realization is what you heard all along in every mantra. Nothing is yours, nothing is permanent. This is all illusion, this is all Maya. So you have to make a beginning to say, I believe in this. So let me give things up because it is not going to be with me anyways. And once you start doing that, you will gain that experience and realization yourself that, yeah, my life doesn't change. Otherwise, we are in a world where we will say, how can you even think of living without a phone? No, when I migrated to the US, there was no cell phone. There was no Google Maps. There was no Apple Maps. We used to go to AAA, get triptychs. It'll be like an album, and some navigator or your family member will be telling you, make a right, make a left here on this highway, etc., etc. If you take 2 generations prior, they didn't even have those maps. My grandfather used to use sun as a direction to say, okay, I need to go north or south to reach some other place. So we shouldn't get obsessed with what we are having today, as that is the ultimate happiness or success. That is the essence of what we are saying here. So in this case, the cessation of speech means the stoppage of connections with persons external to oneself. So maun vrat rakhna ya maun dharan karna is a very similar thing, just like your ekadashi ka vrat rakhna. So cessation of speech means the stoppage of connections with persons external to oneself, though subtle connections are kept up by the mind. I don't have to necessarily keep talking to you to engage you. We can even remotely, without even looking at each other, we can think and stay connected through the mind and independent of the senses. I'm sure each one of you would have done that, right? You think of somebody else. Let's take the example of if your son is in Europe, he's gone for studies. You don't say, "Oh, he's out of mind, out of sight, out of mind." You still stay connected to him. You think about him, whether he has had food, whether did he go to sleep, right? Is he preparing well? Is he comfortable? Is he healthy? So you stay connected through the mind. You don't necessarily have to have the touch and feel and look to stay connected. So, therefore, the gross and the subtle relationships are stopped respectively through cessation of sense functions and of mental modifications. This practice is reinforced by continuous meditation on the nature of Atman. So you start with meditating on the Atman. You don't know what it is. Imagine it like a Om, imagine it like an idol, whatever helps you to stay focused. So focus on continuous meditation. So the Atman is figuratively described as the bridge to immortality. So what is the incentive? Why do you need to do this focus? If you succeed in realizing, the incentive is that you will become immortal. Immortal means what? You get out of the cycle of birth and rebirth. Right? Because we are living in this planet Earth, all we know is this world, this loka. You have to understand there are 14 lokas. You're already in the 7th one. So you got to move upwards, not downwards. Right? So far, so good on this mantra? Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly give you an introduction to a very important topic that we all know for the next 5 minutes, and then we will wrap up today. Because I have to do the setup for the special class for the Veda students. And all of you are welcome to attend it. I've shared the link in case you want to. It will also be there in YouTube. It will be recorded as a private video, which I will share with whoever is interested. So the subject here that I'm going to talk about a little bit is called karma. Karma is also related to rebirth or being born again. So the other word that we all love to know is reincarnation. So when we talk of karma, you cannot ignore dharma, another term that you need to know. So, does anybody have a good idea of what karma is?
I think I can have a go.
Sorry?
I could have a go. I can try to explain
Yeah, sure.
what I know. Okay. So there's Sanchit karma, prarabdha, and agami karma. So Sanchit is the storehouse of all the causal body karma. Prarabdha is when whatever is fructified in the Sanchit comes in this life, and agami is what you play out in this lifetime. So you're trying to exhaust your prarabdha. And if you do your karma, like with Ishwar Arpan Buddhi, you don't develop new karmas and you exhaust your prarabdha. And
Exhaust your?
once you exhaust the prarabdha that you
Ha. Okay.
You don't accumulate any more agami, and then when you exhausted your prarabdha, but you become a jivan mukta because you are doing your karmas with Ishwara Panduti, with knowledge, then you then when you finish that life, then you merge with
God.
The Atma. So you're in the causal body of the Sanchit.
Okay. Very good. Who else understood what she said? How many of you have heard the terms that she used? Everybody is silent. That means
I have heard of the word prarabdha.
Yeah.
That our ancestors keep talking about.
okay.
Grandparents, other than prarabdha, they keep telling that. So, okay, I've heard that, but not
Okay. So simple terms, karma literally means deed or act. Ye kaam kar, wo kar, ye kar. The word kar starts from there, right? The root of the word karma means a deed or act. So when we say deed or act, it again brings the focus into the cause and effect aspect of this whole principle. So you do something, a good act or a good thought, it is not just hanging out there in isolation. It has consequences, cause and effect. You do some bad act, there are bad consequences. You do a good act, there are good consequences. So there is a cause and effect that you need to understand. So it doesn't matter whether it is physical, it can be mental as well. So I will just give a basic introduction and then we will keep on elaborating in the subsequent classes. The first is Sanchita Karma. Sanchita Karma is the sum total of past karma that is yet to be resolved. The sum total of the past karma yet to be resolved. The second category is Prarabdha Karma. And that is that portion of Sanchita Karma which you are experiencing in the present life. Kriyamana Karma is the third type, which you are creating fresh, presently creating new. So, the past negative karma, if you have had some bad actions, can be altered into a smoother, easier state through certain things. We will go into the detail some other time, what those certain things are. But the keywords there is dharma and sadhana. So, you follow a dharmic path, and through sadhana, you'll be able to alter the past negative karmas into a smoother one. So, with this introduction, I just want to leave you to think through and say, put in a list of things that you feel is good karma and put in a list of things that you think is bad karma, which is not just necessarily physical, but also mental. And we will start the next class with those bulleted lists. And relevance of this you will see in 2 mantras later. So you'll be able to connect. By the time you develop a reasonable understanding of what this is, you'll be able to understand the meaning of the mantras two mantras later. Fair enough? Okay, so we'll wrap up with this. Sorry to keep it as a short class. We'll do more justice next time. Thank you. Thank you so much for patiently waiting for me. Have a good day.